Welcome to Victory Quilts. I'm Eleanor Burns. This is a series about the home front in the 1940s, all told through quilt blocks. Today the blocks are Star-Spangled Banner and Stars and Stripes. Patriotism was called for across the United States. Save food for the troops. Plant a victory garden. Well, this call was answered by nearly 20 million Americans. Now, these gardens produced up to 40% of all of the vegetables that were consumed in the nation. That's amazing. Mass-produced potatoes and carrots were sent overseas to feed the troops. In Zelienople, Pennsylvania, my mother, Irma Nagel, did her part planting vegetables, including lettuce, tomatoes, green beans, peppers, and zucchini. And on the bottom of this picture, somebody wrote, "What a picture." I think my mom looks pretty good. My big sister, Kathy, did her part for victory by helping pull the carrots. Well, Mother had one of the richest gardens around. A herd of cows produced all the manure she needed. Young patriots helped on the home front as well to win the war as well. Boy Scouts took part in scrap drives. They collected tin, aluminum, rags, and tires for recycling into war materials. Oh, their little wagons came in handy as they scavenged through the trash. Girl Scouts helped as well. They knitted socks for the soldiers. So let's scavenge through our red, white, and blue scraps and make two patriotic blocks. Our first block is Stars and Stripes. Oh, it's a very patriotic block. Well, it's actually 3 parallelograms in columns. Look at this. 2 blue are exactly the same with yellow stars appliqued right in the center. And then the middle one is a stripe. It looks like a flag, but it is cut in the shape of a parallelogram. Well, it was designed by Nancy Cabot. Now, Nancy Cabot is a fictitious name. She really did not exist. The column was written by Loretta Littner Rising for Chicago Tribune. It was actually sold by the mail order. You could buy just one of her patterns, or they were grouped together in booklets. You know, the Progressive Farmer also sold Nancy Cabot patterns. It's very creative looking. I really love it. Let's start right here with the blue piece. Now, the size of it is 4.5 inches by 12.5 inches. To get this shape, you need to have 2 squares that are 4.5 inches square. We're going to put them right sides together on both ends. Now, let's just draw diagonal lines exactly in the same direction as the piece already. Get 2 done exactly like that, corner to corner, one like this, and then the second one. Now, to compensate for the fold, we're going to sew on the outside edge of the line. Now, on this one, it would be to the right, the outside edge, and then this one right here, it's down towards the bottom, to the outside edge. How about some pins, just to keep those pieces together? No sliding around today. I put my applique foot on. It's an open toe applique foot. I really like the open toe because I can see what I'm doing. Now, I have a great hint to tell you. If you take and you start stitching right into this little point here, let me tell you, your machine would just love to eat that tip. It'll just zip right down into the throat plate. But if you turn your piece and you start sewing from the middle, you'll be much happier. So let's just line up that edge, put the needle down in the fabric, perfect. Press your foot down and you start stitching on the outside edge. Now, I would be real happy if you get it on the outside edge of the line, not 1/4 of an inch, not 1/8 of an inch, but just along the edge. Or if you even get it on the line, I'd be really happy too. Just get it approximate. You know it's not rocket science, huh? Okay, that's one. Let's turn it around. One more time. Let's turn so we start in the middle. Place on the outside edge. Press your foot down, put your needle down, and just stitch right along there. It's just such a fun block. Did you know that kids would actually walk around looking for gum wrappers and cigarette wrappers just so they could get the silver? Oh, I read one place that the kids spent their whole time walking along looking down on the ground. Okay, we've got the stitching, the diagonal lines on both sides. Now, look at your ruler, find the 1/4 inch line, and just line it up with the stitches. The 1/4 inch line is on the stitches. Trim off one side. That's perfect. Turn it around, put the 1/4 inch line on the second side, and trim. Now, I know you probably have suggestions for what to do with this, but I'm just going to get rid of it for now. I know I could pick it up and do it later. I'm setting this piece up so that it locks with the middle piece. So I'm turning it over to the wrong side and just pressing that seam in so that it's right behind the navy, right behind the blue. Just turn it around, push it in, set the seam. Looking good. Now this piece, since we compensated for the fold, should be exactly as we started. It should still be 4.5 inches by 10.5 inches in length. All right, we've got 2 done. We're 1/3 of the way already. Now, these are my stripes. The width is 1 3/4 inches. They're 10 inches long. You need to have 3 reds and 2 of the background. Now, so that we can set up for that parallelogram, we're going to offset each one of these strips by 1 inch. And so I'm just sliding it along using my grid so that I can see 1 inch down on each one of them. We'll sew in pairs, flip the background right sides together to these 2, plus we have one lonely guy sitting out there. Now, instead of a scant 1/4 inch today, we have to do a perfect 1/4 inch. No scant quarters, or it's just not going to work out. So I'm just dropping off my applique foot. I want to get my 1/4 inch foot lined up on there so it's ready to go. Okay, so we're just going to assembly line sew, write down these and just work with them as pairs. Just one piece right after the other. You know, it is really fun to think about what the kids did collect as little scavengers. You know that they actually had aluminum days in the theater. Well, if the children came with anything made out of an aluminum, well, they got to watch the matinee for free that day. I'm sure they were all out there gathering up whatever they could find. So these 2 strips are done. These 2 strip sets are done. So now I'm going to just go ahead and press the seams towards the medium. Okay, set the medium on top and a little bit of steam, open, press right in there. Same thing with the second one. Set the seam, open, and press. Now that the pairs are done, all I have to do is just cut them apart, lay out these 2 pairs, and then add on that 3rd one. Let's see, like that, and that will be it. Well, let me finish this up, and I'll show you how to finish the block. I sewed all of my strips together, and then I pressed my seams towards the background. Now comes the test. How wide is this strip? Well, it's supposed to be 6 1/4 inches. I'm going to find out just how fat my seams were. All right, look at that. 6 1/4. Perfect. Now, if you need to sliver trim 1/8 inch off of each side, don't worry. Just sliver trim so it measures 6 1/4 inches. Now find the 45-degree line on your ruler and line it up right along the straight edge. What I'm going to do is just trim off all of these tops of the strips. Just cut it off on the 45-degree line. That's really cool, but I can't use it. So take it and get rid of it. And then turn your patch around and place the 4.5 inch line. I think I'll just make sure I'm at 4.5 inches. Line it up along here, 4.5 inches the whole way along. Just take this, cut it off, and that's actually the extra part. Okay, let's just take a look and see how this is going to fit right in here. Perfect. Looking good. Now to fill these spots, we need to have a 5-inch square cut on one diagonal. We just have to get those sewn on the ends and we are done. So let's see, that's going to go like that in there, and this piece will go right like that. So flip it right sides together, and along this edge, line the edge of the square up with a strip. Let's flip this piece right sides together and line it up right along here. How about some pins? Just stick that right in there to hold it all together. And these are the edges. You're going to sew on the diagonal lines, similar to what we did with the blue, but we're going to do it on the diagonal. So this is back to that 1/4 inch foot, right along there. Zip, right along. Keep it perfect. You know, the Girl Scouts were out too, gathering stuff. Well, they had fun because they got to gather parachutes. They got to gather silk and use it for parachutes and for gunpowder bags. Doesn't that sound like fun? Silk for parachutes. And I guess that's why women actually didn't get to wear stockings the whole World War II. They couldn't wear stockings. They used the silk in the parachutes. And, well, the women didn't want to go without stockings, so they drew dark lines right up the center of their legs. You know, we did that whenever we were doing our USO show. That was really fun. Now, take the seam, set it, open it, press it over. Same thing with this side. Set the seam, press it over. And this piece now needs to be squared up to the same size as the two blues. And that is 4.5 by 12.5. Use your 6 by 24 inch ruler, and let's just see. Oh, it's looking good. Oh my gosh, it is just about perfect. So across the top we have 4.5 inches, and all we're going to do is just sliver trim this right along there. And there's just a little bit to trim down along this side. Trim that off. And let's just turn the whole patch around, and we will repeat on the second side. Line up 4.5 inches here, 12.5 inches right down along here, and just cut off those tips, and we are ready to sew those units together. Let's just drop this right in here. Perfect. And you will see that these seams will actually lock together whenever you flip them just right sides. Oh, we've got the stars. How about let's work on the stars quick before we sew this whole unit together. Now, the stars are templates, and I want to show you my favorite way of making a template. I like to make a photocopy of the pattern, get a glue stick, and just put glue all over the photocopy. Just get it, messy. And then take your template plastic, place it on top, and then really smooth it. So now you don't have to do any tracing to get that template. You've got your pattern already on there. All you need to do is cut on the line, and your pattern is perfect. All right, I have paperback fusible web. There's a paper side and there's a fusible side. So you want to put the paper side to the wrong side of the fabric. Now you've got to be careful. You don't want to press this too long. The first pressing should only be about 2 seconds, and that is definitely 2 seconds. The reason you don't want to put it on too long right now is because you could totally melt that adhesive and it will never stick again. So now you're just going to go ahead and trace your 2 stars right on the paper side of the paperback fusible. And let's see, that's one, that's looking good. Okay, you're going to draw the second one and then take your scissors and cut on the lines. Let's just snip up right along here. You know, I also really love this story about the children that would go with their grandmas and their mothers. While the trains were passing through town, all of the children would get out and they would hand out coffee as the trains went through. They handed out donuts to the troops. It was just such a patriotic thing, all in their strive for victory. Well, you need nice sharp scissors for this step. one more cut. Now once you've got it cut out, just take your finger, just run it along the edge, and that releases the paper, and then just pull the paper away, and you can see that the fusing is on the back side. Now once we get this block all sewn together, then we're just going to place the star right in the middle. Make sure you consider the 1/4 inch seam on this side and this side. Consider the center and then fuse the stars right in place. And that finishes your block. We are stripping again. Now I wonder if the Statue of Liberty can strip, because these are great star-studded streamers. Well, we're working on the Star-Spangled Banner now. It was actually published by the Kansas City Star in 1941, and it is so easy I think a kid could do it. There are the stripes right here, the red and white, 3 in a row, 4 different blocks. There are 4 stars on the blue fabric on the outside edges, and then in the very center is yellow with blue, just the opposite. I mean, they are easy. Well, for the 12.5 inch block, the strips are cut at 1 7/8 inches. They are half strips. They're about 20 inches long. So just zip them right down with that 1/4 inch seam, and then press the background so it's on top of the medium. Well, I measured mine already. The strip width for the 12.5 inches is supposed to be 4.5 inches. Check it out. Is that good or what? Well, I thought it would be easy if I just used my 4.5 inch fussy cut to just cut this into 4.5 inch squares. And then if you have a little extra, you could just sliver trim it off right now. Now for the 12.5 inch, they're 4.5 inch squares. Oh, those 6.5 inch blocks, only 2.5 inch strips. That is really narrow little guys. Really got to have a nice straight seam on that one. Okay, these are the side pieces. Let's just lay them out like this. If they're not a perfect 4.5, you can always just sliver trim them up. Okay, the very center is also a 4.5, and then we've got the 4 blues to place in each one of the corners. Well, then they have these really cute long pointed stars on top. That's the way it looks. You're just going to sew in the vertical rows and then go across, always pressing the seams away from this striped piece, and that'll work out great. And then you can see it from the back side. The very last seam is pressed away from the center. Well, this one has cute little stars that are actually blind hem stitched on. You could do a blanket stitch, you could do a straight stitch. You have to decide which one you want to do. I thought I'd just show you how to put your stars on. Now, I already did the process of fusing the paper to the wrong side, and there is my fusing right on there. When you take this, you want to place it so that it's on point, and you want to make sure that it's in about 1/8 of an inch. Kind of take it right into the corners. And then we've got the 4 stars. Now they're going to go in. You're actually going to have the 1/4 inch around the outside edge. So let's just see how quickly we can get those all positioned in. These look great. Orion helped me out and cut them. This is a good project that you could do some teamwork with your grandchild, if you have one, because they can surely do this strip piecing. They can also help you cut out the stars. Are looking good. They're looking great. Now, this time, you can actually hold your iron down on the star for 6 to 8 seconds. A little bit longer than you could do on the first step. But now that we're putting them in place, just hold it down 6 to 8 seconds. No steam. Just straight down with your iron. Make sure you get all of those points in place. I've just got one more to do. Looking good. And I always like to turn the whole patch over and then just press one more time from the back side just to make sure they're in perfect place. Now, I'm just going to select a stitch, a straight stitch on my sewing machine. I'm going to move my needle so that it is a little off center to the left, so that whenever I drop my foot and line up the edge of the foot, I am slightly about 1/8 inch in. Always use needle down so that you can just raise and pivot. Be very careful when you stitch into those points. Oh my gosh, those are the pointiest stars that I have ever seen. But just very carefully stitch about 1/8 inch around the outside edge, and that is going to hold them in place. Well, my banner's just about finished. It's time to strike up the band. War bonds provided a crucial source of revenue for the war effort. Lorna Leake remembers buying savings bonds in grade school, and this is her little book. It says 10-cent stamps, $25 bonds. Well, an eagle is flying across the book carrying a flag, and inside it says, "This is your 10 cents defense stamp album. Fill it with 187 10-cent defense stamps. Add 5 cents in coin, and it will have a value of $18.95. Exchange it at the post office for a defense savings bond, which, after 10 years, will be worth $25. Then start filling another defense stamp album." You know, I think the government had a good thing going with these books, because I think there must be a ton of them that never got cashed in. Well, teachers and parents worked hard at encouraging children to be patriotic. I found this antique coloring book. It says, "America, the land of the free." And the Pledge of Allegiance is right on the very first page. Well, the pages show historical events in the country, not to be forgotten. Well, especially in wartime, it was important to remind the children. Right in the middle of the book, it says, "We celebrate our independence." And on the next page, the owner signed his name, Donald, 1945. So I know how old this book is. Well, the service banner is an official banner that the family of service members in harm's way can display. Now, it's a banner with a white background and a red border with a blue star for each family member in active duty. Well, if a family member dies during service, a smaller gold star is sewn on top of the blue star with just a blue edge showing. Now, these banners were hung in windows of service members' homes, and the children would walk past these homes and salute. Well, the Gold Star Mothers of America was founded to support mothers who lost sons or daughters in the war. We honor the Gold Star Mothers on the last Sunday in September. Well, you can help your child show patriotism by helping him make this easy block with just a single star in the center. All you do is just trace the star on the paper side of fusible interfacing, and then fuse it to the wrong side of the fabric and cut out the star. Then you just fuse it right onto the background square. Now you can have your child sew around the outside edge, do a little quilting, and you don't even need to bind it. Just use your serger or your regular sewing machine and just stitch around the outside edges. Share this special time with your children.